people appreciate that in family law, you kind of do get a little bit of a better quality of life or work-life balance. Our team has really good support systems to allow all of us the flexibilities to maintain our lives. So I think certainly for somebody who is looking for a legal career where you can balance, having a family, maintaining relationships outside of work, and kind of, not necessarily like living at the office like some people imagine or, may hear feedback from others about, that's a really great thing.
Hello and welcome to another conversation with a great law firm owner or lawyer. My name is Ashley, CEO and founder of Green Carnegie Marketing. Today we have the privilege of talking to Brian Kupferberg of Berkman, Bottger, Newman Schein. If you check out Brian's profile on his firm's website, the amount of recognitions are endless. Brian is a highly decorated lawyer in New York who is helping families across the entire state of New York. Brian's going to talk about some of the wins in his career and some things he's passionate about. I believe you're going to enjoy today's conversation, so let's get into it. Hey, Brian, how are you? Thanks for joining me today.
I'm doing fine, Ashley. It's great to be here, and it's a pleasure to meet with you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and I'm really looking forward to a great conversation. Same
here. I've had the pleasure of meeting some of your colleagues at the annual AAML event in November last year. So really excited to talk to you. Let's start by you telling everybody who you are, what do you do, where do you practice?
Absolutely. So my name is Brian Kupferberg. I am a higher mid-level to senior level associate with Berkman, Bottger, Newman Schein. We are one of New York City's largest exclusively matrimonial focused legal practices. And I practice predominantly out of the New York City tri-state area, including New York City, the 5 boroughs, Westchester County, Long Island, basically anywhere from the Hudson Valley to the eastern tip of Long Island, you name it. And I've been there, done it, and are generally finding myself there regularly.
So how long have you been in matrimonial law, and have you always done that after law school? What is that? Give me maybe what led you up to this area of practice?
Absolutely. So the funny thing about this is that I always like to explain to people when I get asked this question that it's not something I ever really naturally intended to do. If you'd have asked me when I was, heading into law school as a first year, I thought I might have been a bankruptcy lawyer or somebody who dealt with, corporations and spreadsheets and financial roles and all those other kinds of things. And you know what, in the let's say about 10 years or so that I've been focused predominantly on matrimonial, it's been the best. I've done work in a couple of different areas, but always found myself either involving myself back, coming back around, or finding my practice needs, being directed towards that. I've done a little bit of criminal defense work for a limited period of time. And I even was working as house counsel in New Jersey, defending Revlon Cosmetics, which was a fascinating job. But ultimately people, as life happens, still have those family law needs, and they had known I had done it in the past and still had an acumen for it. And ultimately it seemed like a really perfect way to find myself in a good developing practice.
That's great. That's interesting. I always find it a really interesting journey of how folks landed into the matrimonial law. It's interesting. You've got the criminal background. The bankruptcy is one I don't know if I've ever heard before. So that's interesting. Tell me for maybe someone's watching this and they are a first year and they're saying, I'm not exactly sure. Kind of give me, what would you say to that person specifically about this area of the law? What are some things you enjoy about it? Lifestyle or business or legal? What are some things that you enjoy about them?
Yeah, so I think that there's a variety of those kind of aspects, and I think that's a really wonderful question. First and foremost, I think compared to certain practice styles or certain law firm practices, bigger versus smaller, perhaps, people appreciate that in family law, you kind of do get a little bit of a better quality of life or work-life balance. You're not necessarily working, you may not be working 90 hours every week, but, just like life emergencies happen. The funny thing about what we do is that, sometimes you are always on because people's needs come up at all different hours, all different days. Emergencies happen, kids get sick, you name it, we deal with it. And so the funny thing is, we find ourselves doing work all the time, just like people are dealing with their lives all the time. but it definitely gives us a good balance when we need it. There's good flexibility. Our team has really good support systems to allow all of us the flexibilities to maintain our lives. So I think certainly for somebody who is looking for a legal career where you can balance, having a family, maintaining relationships outside of work, and kind of, not necessarily like living at the office like some people imagine, or, may hear feedback from others about, that's a really great thing. But, I think at the end of the day, for me, the be all end all, the reason why I started matrimonial, why I came back to matrimonial, and why I continue to do it, is that it's a people business first and foremost. It is, you're dealing day in, day out with people's lives, people's problems, helping them find solutions to the day to day that affects them when they get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee and get ready to go to the office, and they're dealing with their kids at school, and, they're worrying about their paycheck at work, and they're trying to figure out and plan for retirement. So I love, the ability to do meaningful work with our clients, to support people when they have a time of need, and to be able to be a trusted advisor for them and make sure that they are getting sound advice and recommendations, to make sure that everybody lands on the right foot once this process is over, because it is just a stepping stone to the next stage of life for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. The human element of it, that can't be forgotten, right? And probably as you've grown, I would imagine if you've grown and more mature in your career, we all start to value things differently and value different aspects of our career. And the lifestyle of it, I'm sure, is a super appealing stage to that. So Brian, talk to me about, you're at a larger firm. We talk to on this podcast, and many of our clients are at larger firms, but then we speak to many folks who are solo practitioners, and they've got a few associates, and they're doing the thing. And your day-to-day lives probably look quite a bit different, right? So being at this larger firm, what does the marketing, or this, at the end of the day, we are a marketing company here, and we want to know about how people are growing and acquiring more clients and the right clients. What does that look like for you at a larger firm? Is it completely up to the firm? Is it also you've got to do your own networking? What does that look like?
Great question. So, first and foremost, just as a point of clarification, I always, I like the reference to small firm versus large firm. We're about 30-ish attorneys, give or take. So compared to some firms that might consider themselves large, we're still minuscule. But, having just come from a solo, working, myself as an associate, one partner, and, an assistant, it becomes orders of magnitude larger. They give us, Berkman Bottger has been really, really wonderful for us because they give us a lot of leeway. They give us a good amount of flexibility with what we do. They are engaged and invested in making sure that we can be part of the community. I know that you spoke with one of my colleagues, Michael Freed, a few weeks back, who, was very involved and is a member of the AML, like you mentioned. And, those organizations, those kind of connections are first and foremost, I think one of the best ways that we can help build business. Nationwide networks. I know I do professional networking groups in person or out of person, electronically and whatnot. And I think, given the nature of the business that we do, matrimonial practice is sensitive. People's concerns, family affairs, family issues are delicate. And so I always like to joke with people, but, I mean it serious, with an element of truth, to say, I'll never be a billboard lawyer, or you see one of the personal injury people where their phone number is all the same number, like 666-6666 or whatever it ends up being. When people have a need for family lawyers, we want to be able to have a recommendation to somebody, knowing that we've served that person perhaps as a trusted advisor, or that they know that there's a certain trust-based relationship there, to say, look, this is somebody we know, who you can rely on, somebody who will go to bat for you, and somebody who, is going to work with you, whether you need somebody who is gentle, whether you need somebody who's perhaps, prepared to be aggressive. And so for us, they give us a lot of avenues to do marketing. And this, even your show is a prime example of that, to be able to say, look, I'd love to be interviewed and put my profile out there. And so they basically say, the sky's the limit. And so, they support us, but we pound the pavement and find those avenues ourselves, do that exploration. And it's not necessarily a mandate or a dictate to say everybody's going out and you're doing 4 marketing meetings a week, for example. And that's great. I think it avoids the drudgery of it. And, plus then we get to meet with, awesome people like you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. It creates an element of, you can still be distinct and different, because Brian is different than Michael Fried, and your personalities and your interests and maybe your ideal client is vastly different. So Brian, talk to the lawyer who's at a similar stage, maybe in practice, whatever the size firm may be. What are some wins, or maybe some things you might avoid or do differently in your career? You choose one or both. If you're going to look back and talk to yourself as you're graduating law school, I'm really glad I did that one thing. Maybe I could have done this thing differently. Maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but what are a few of those things? No.
So I think one of the things I've noticed lately, in the last year or so, which has been fascinating to me, is that, there seems to be disparities in how people practice. There are people who like to be in court. There are people who like to be out of court, or, based on their experiential trajectory, like how they got to where they are, shapes who we are. Your experiences build you into the person you become. And I always joke about this because I say, from the very get-go, basically the first day, first job, wherever I was, they were like, okay, cool, you're going to court, doing this, that, and you'll be fine. Just, get through it, learn your experience, you'll do it. We all do it. You tough it out. And it's a good experience for everybody. And it's been, as you mentioned, laden with ups and downs. There have been great moments. There have been, not so appealing moments or not so satisfying moments. There have been motions that you go and you oral argue and you prepare. And I remember when I was early on and I was, more green, that there were ones where it just didn't go my way. You might have been arguing as best you could for your client, but the judge just doesn't see it your way. And just the notion of not winning. Litigators are competitive. I like to win. I do. I like to do good for my clients, and I'd like to be able to tell them, look, we're achieving the best for you. You can't win absolutely everything, which is a reality that is tough to learn, but it is something you do learn over practice, or you learn to pick your battles because of that. But I would say, some of the sweeter ones are opportunities where you do get that win, and the ability to realize that success for your client. Like I for a great example of that would be, obtaining a dismissal of an order of protection case for a gentleman where he and his wife had separated. He was living out in the western tier of New York, 800 miles away from his wife, who was in the Hudson Valley. And, she had called the police repeatedly and filed orders of protection. And he just said, look, our lives are separated and we're divorced. And I just, I guess for lack of a better term, I want to be rid of all of this. And I'd like my peace back. He was living out respectfully, like he was living out in the middle of nowhere in the country and was just enjoying nature and wanted some peace of mind. And, we went through court and we did all of, we showed up and we filed the papers and we made the arguments. And, a long and drawn out process, unfortunately, ended in the result that we said at the beginning we thought we'd be able to get for him. And he got a dismissal, and it was all put by the wayside. And his former wife, had gotten a very stern talking to by the judge. And but for the amount of time it took to get there, just because of the way the process works, we were able to tell the client, like, look, you don't have a concern about this for the future. You should be able to, get your peace of mind back and enjoy yourself from here on out, free of that burden and free of the harassment and the issues. Another great example is making sure parents have the ability, custodially, to make the best choices for their kids, to do what's right for their family, to say, my child, may need help or may need to do this X, Y, or Z. And somebody disagrees, whether it's the other parent or something. And to be able to get that win for your client, to be able to say, look, you have that choice now. You have that power. Do what you need to, speak to the experts, follow the recommendations. That is probably one of the most satisfying things that I've ever been able to do in my entire career, is to empower my clients to do what's best for their families or themselves in the situation when they need it most.
Well said. Well said. That's got it. What an interesting story. I'm so glad you shared that specific example of that, your client of just want to live in peace, and you were able to help him achieve that. Brian, tell folks how they can contact you. Where can they find you at if they're looking to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So our website is generally one of the best ways to find a little bit more about us, the roster of our associates and partners. That's going to be berkbot.com, BERKBOT.com. That'll have all of our contact information, some social media profile information, some blog posts about various, happenings, developments, goings on, interesting quirks about family law here in New York. So if you or anybody you know happens to need family law services in New York or New Jersey, feel free to check us out, or you can give us a call, 212-867-9123. That's one of our main lines, and we'll be able to direct you to somebody who can take your information and help get you in touch with one of the members of our team, so that way we can connect with you about your family law needs and how we could possibly be of service to you guys.
Brian, before we go, I have to say we've never had a beautiful cat make an appearance, but I have seen your cat over your left shoulder make an appearance, crawling around back there, or a dog or something. So what is the name of your animal that's crawling around?
I didn't realize she'd poked through my virtual background, and I think that might have been Princess, who was slinking off for her 10 a.m. nap. Been up for all of about 45 minutes or so. Yeah, just lurking around the background and making sure we're doing diligence.
She's just checking in on you. Princess, what are the names of the other animals we have in this house? I love this so far.
Oh, no, it's just her. She rules the roost and sits at the top of the pyramid. She is about a 10-year-old Maltese Jack Russell Terrier. And she rules with a little bit of a furry iron fist.
Okay, I see her now. I see. You have to give her my apologies for referring to her as a cat. So you have to apologize to her for me.
Oh, no, never. I didn't even notice that she'd poked through incidentally. So please, I trying to keep awake at the supervisor.
It's good. There you go. Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time. It was really great to talk to you. I know that there are going to be other folks watching this who are going to learn and get some insight into matrimonial law or working at a size firm that you've worked at. Thank you for sharing your stories. It was really great to talk to you.
Ashley, I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you so much for the pleasure of speaking with you this morning. I really appreciate it.